Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome fans to a Spread special assignment. I'm your host Jim Sella, flying solo today in studio as far as J-Dash and Johnny Parlay are concerned. They skipped out on me on this segment. Today I'm going to be talking to Delaware University athletic trainer Brandon DeSantis about CTE and some of the sudden retirements of some of these NFL players like Patrick Willis and Jason Worlds. How you doing today, Brandon?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. It's been a while.
It has. First time I've had you on in a long time. It's been too long.
I know. I'm looking forward to being back.
Believe it. Well, I know ESPN tries to have their own athletic trainer and some of these other places, but we're the OG here at the Spread. Brandon brings us the truth, nothing but the truth. He's the OG of the athletic training game, been around the block, been with Pitt, worked with the Steelers, worked with UCLA, now he's settled in with Delaware. You've been all over the country, man.
Yeah, thanks for that introduction. I do speak the truth, I guess, but just glad to help out, man.
Believe it. Well, Brandon, can you explain to some of the fans and me, basically, what is CTE? We hear about it all the time on ESPN, on NFL Network. What exactly is it? How does it affect people?
CTE is short for chronic traumatic encephalopathy. It's a degenerative brain disease caused by repetitive head trauma. The brain develops what's called a buildup of tau proteins that can cause memory impairment, emotional instability, erratic behavior, depression, and problems with impulse control. These changes in the brain can begin months, years, or even decades after the trauma actually occurs. It's very similar in its neuropathology to Alzheimer's disease. However, the symptoms of CTE generally present earlier in life than those of Alzheimer's. The first Alzheimer's symptoms that typically pop up are problems with memory, while the first symptoms of CTE are usually issues with judgment and impulse control.
Now, this is what was affecting players such as Mike Webster and Junior Seau, correct?
Yes.
Everybody in Pittsburgh knows the whole story of Mike Webster, one of the hardest football players ever, but man, did he have a sad end to his life. That poor guy didn't deserve that.
Yeah, it's definitely a shame what happened to some of those guys. Guys that had really long careers, really good Hall of Fame players. It's really sad what happened to them.
Well, how is CTE diagnosed, and is there treatment for it, or is it something that you can't really diagnose till it's too late?
Unfortunately, at the moment, CTE can only be definitively diagnosed through post-mortem examination of the brain. MRIs, CT scans, things of that nature do not pick up on the buildup of that protein that we talked about earlier. Currently, the research is being done at the Center for the Study of Traumatic Encephalopathy at Boston University School of Medicine. They're doing a ton of research there right now. But researchers are still trying to develop ways to diagnose CTE in living people, which would then be the key to developing the treatment for it. Unfortunately, at this time, the best form of treatment is to prevent this injury from occurring, really.
Well, I heard an interview with Dr. Maroon. He works with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He said the problem of CTE, although it's real, is being over-exaggerated and extrapolated to youth football and high school football. He then says there's an article published where doctors studied all the cases of CTE from 1954 to August of 2013. They found 63 total cases of CTE, a few more in the last couple years since the study. But there's been about 30 to 40 million kids who have played football in that time, youth football, high school football. So is it, being overblown in the media? I don't know. Dr. Maroon said you can get more injuries from falling off your bike or falling off your scooter or on the playground. I mean, hell, I smashed my forehead off the ground so many times trying to learn how to ride a bike. So I think some people are confused by the statements that Dr. Maroon, what he's saying. I think the point he's trying to make is there isn't enough cases of CTE that were studied, especially in people who played youth football. So for him to say, as a medical professional, that there is a definite link from football to CTE would not be accurate, because there's really just not enough research to prove that theory right now.
Yeah, I agree with your interpretation. Makes no excuses about it. This is a very dangerous disease for the people that it affects. I think his comments were taken a little bit out of context. Dr. Maroon is pointing out the fact that at this time, there is no cause and effect relationship between football and CTE. When I was with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2009, I got to work with Dr. Maroon when I was there for my internship. I actually did a presentation on CTE for my undergraduate research, and I was able to interview him as part of that presentation. He's just pointing out that CTE can occur from repetitive brain trauma, and football is not the only way that a person or a child can have brain trauma. I mean, he mentioned people falling off bikes, things like that. Football is just in the national spotlight because it's such a high-profile sport. There's so much going on in the media with it right now that there's a spotlight on football, but the reality is that people can have head traumas from car accidents, from any kind of other thing, and at this time, there really is not a cause and effect relationship. If you play football, it does not mean that you're going to have CTE, although, unfortunately, as we've seen recently, it can occur.
Yeah, I mean, there's a million ways you see kids bump their heads, kids get hurt. The media, like you said, the NFL's in the spotlight. They make billions and billions of dollars. Of course, everybody's going to have their eye on the NFL. They actually announced a statement that Dr. Maroon does not speak for the NFL. I think it's just kind of a PR thing because they realized that people took what Dr. Maroon said out of context. So I think one of the biggest things for me is people are uneducated to what CTE is, how it occurs, and how it affects people. So the biggest hurdle for the regular person is really understanding everything and not to just jump on the bandwagon as soon as, one network says it's terrible and it's going to ruin all football. Because let's face it, there are parents who are thinking about not letting their kids play football just because, they read maybe one quick article, 6 sentences on it, and they just think, everybody who hits their head is going to get CTE.
Yeah, that's definitely not the case. And going back to Dr. Maroon for a second, this guy is brilliant, plain and simple. He's one of the leaders in his field, and he's communicated with the NFL on several different occasions on developing ways to prevent this disease from happening to current NFL players. The guy's a leader in his field. Again, he's not an NFL spokesperson, but without him and the research that he's done and the ways he's contributed, we would know a whole lot less on this subject. And the NFL is doing so many things right now to prevent head injuries from occurring. Again, the spotlight is on them, and I don't even believe it to be a knee-jerk reaction what they're doing. They're doing what they can to protect their players. Without their players being healthy and playing, the NFL is nothing. So, they're doing what they can to prevent every injury from occurring. I think it's the safest time to play professional football right now with all the research that's coming out and ways that, we as healthcare professionals are helping to prevent injuries from occurring in athletes. I think this is the safest time to be an athlete.
I agree with you, especially in the NFL with the new concussion protocol that they have. Any player who exhibits any signs of concussion symptoms, they're pulled from the game immediately in most cases. I know you can't see every single little thing, and a player can lie about their symptoms, so, you never know 100% of the time if it is. But you got guys in the booth up top watching you. You got doctors on the sidelines. You got independent neurosurgeons working with these teams. It's definitely the safest time to be an athlete and play football in general. A lot of the injuries that happened in the 70s, people start overblowing all this too. We didn't know what we know now. So when you got a concussion, it was like a badge of courage to go back into the game and play. So had they known what they know now then, I'm sure not as many players would be ending up with, the CTE and dementia and things of that sort from all these constant head injuries. It's just a matter of now we have the technology to study all these things. So finally, the NFL is being able to institute these policies, and I agree, it's not a knee-jerk reaction. It's a reaction of all the years of data that they have that they now can study and analyze correctly.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And keep in mind, in the 70s, when all this stuff probably started, the athletic trainers and medical staffs were probably following the protocol that they had in place at the time. It's just that the medical field is constantly evolving. We're constantly learning new things that we didn't even know 5-10 years ago. So I'm sure they were doing what they thought were the right things back then. We just know so much more now, and we know better ways to protect players now. So I don't think that the NFL has really done anything, like we talked about, knee-jerk reactions. They're evolving with the medical field.
Well, with all this new technology and research that we have, players are more health conscious than ever. Do you think we could see more instances such as the Patrick Willis, a Chris Borland, or a Jason Worlds, where players are retiring earlier than expected to try to save their health? I know in World's case it wasn't directly related to health, but Patrick Willis said he could barely walk. When he steps out of bed in the morning, just to set his foot on the ground is painful because of the toe injuries that he's had. Chris Borland walked away after 1 year saying that it's not worth his brain. They've all made decent money. Worlds has made a little over $11 million. Willis has made millions, and Borland made, I think, a little over $500,000 this year. That's good money to be able to walk away with your health and have the rest of your life ahead of you.
Yeah, I think we might see more players retiring. Look, every player is made well aware of the risk of playing professional football. Medical staff sit down at the beginning of every single year with every player. They go over paperwork, they discuss the risks involved, and not just with brain injuries. Obviously, concussion is talked about, but just going over the risks of musculoskeletal injuries. So these players are well aware of the risk that they're taking by playing professional football. And really what it comes down to is these guys have to decide whether they're willing to take the risk to play this game and to make the money that they do. Some guys aren't willing to take that risk, and you know what? That's fine with me. It's their life, it's their body, and it's their decision. I don't think this should be treated as an epidemic of these players retiring early. Remember, there's no cause and effect concern for CTE, but you can assume that when you play football, your body's going to get beat up in some way. And some guys just don't want to deal with that. And you know what? More power to them. No one's going to make them do anything that they aren't willing to do. And if this is what they think is the best thing for them, for their longevity, whether they have families or not, I have no problem with it.
I heard one of the athletic trainers on ESPN, I can't remember his name, but he said that if your heart's not in the game, in any sport really, and if you're worried or concerned about injury, you're more likely to be injured because your focus is not where it should be. Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
Absolutely. This is something that we take into account when we're returning an athlete from an injury. If athletes are showing hesitation or fear of playing, then we're not going to clear them. Even if, objectively they look fine, their strength's back, their motion's back, functionally they can work out. We're not going to clear somebody if they're afraid to play, because they're going to be timid, and more likely they're either going to re-injure themselves or they're going to hurt something else by playing, by not giving 100% when they're playing. So this is something that definitely needs to be taken into account, really at all times.
Well, Brandon, I want to thank you for taking some time to talk with us at The Spread. Thank you for helping educate the fans. I'm sure everybody's interested in this with it being in the news right now. Fans, you can follow us on Twitter at bet_the_spread. You could follow me on Twitter at betjimtowin. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to that YouTube channel. Keep clicking that thumbs up, fans. We love it.
Well, thanks for having me on, buddy. Had a great time, and I'm looking forward to our next segment.